close to the museum. The lotus flower symbolizing the freedom of Egypt. When it was built, it was the highest top in the Middle East, 187 meters high. Not anymore, of course, it's not the highest top in the Middle East, but it still is the highest top in Cairo. People take an elevator up to the very top where you can see Cairo beneath you, and it also has a nice revolving restaurant at the very top. On some of the houses. And remember when I told you that Cairo was planned as a replica of Paris. The beautiful building that you see to the left is the Syndicate of Journalists. The shops that you see around you, these were top class shops. Like in England, for example, like Regent Street in London. It was a very, very high-class place. People were not allowed to walk down the streets of the city center unless formally dressed. Women in their hats and gloves, men in suits. Unfortunately, the son of Muhammad Ali the Great. Certainly not the boxer. When we reach the mosque, I'll tell you who Muhammad Ali the Great was. He started our late royal family in 1805. The several-story garage. This is where our old opera house once stood. It's to your left. Our old opera house was built in 1869 for the opening of again, look at the beautiful buildings to the right. You see the main fire station in the city center here. Just as we step out of the city center and as we drive down this bridge, you will notice how different the city changes. When we drive through the oldest part of the city, it's oldest and far poorer, where you feel that the houses are nearly crumbling. When you look at the city center, I want you to remember or imagine another Cairo in another era. It was a beautiful city.
Is that the market on the left?
Now what you see to your left, this is a local market that sells anything and everything that comes to your mind at very cheap prices. Now the market seems deserted. You should see it after the Friday noon prayer. Probably you've never seen so many people in one place in your life. The whole market area is 14 square miles. This is just a tiny, tiny portion of the market. So if you look to the right and to the left, one shop after the other, they sell fabrics. The daughter of the Prophet, and they ruled Egypt in the 10th and 11th century. This was where their capital was, and they were the ones who established Cairo as a city, as I told you, in 960 AD. This section of Cairo is the oldest section, dating back to the 9th and the 10th centuries AD. You see mosques that still stand until today that were built in the 9th century. One of them is the very important mosque, which is Al Azhar Mosque, that we shall pass by in a while. A very highly acknowledged university in Cairo. I find this a very interesting drive, where if you look around you, take a glimpse of how people in this country live. In these offices is what would be applied. Now this area, the low buildings that will now be to your left, this is a very interesting part of Cairo. It's called the City of the Dead. This is a huge burial ground that started in the 14th century and till today. At one time it covered 1/3 of the whole area in Cairo. It is so huge. The tombs are still used until today, generation after generation. You also see the mausoleums. In the last 20 years or 30 years, actually, people started living among the tombs. It's the only place where they could live and not pay rent. And it had become an unsafe place to walk through, especially by night. Many people, because you remember today is Friday. It's everyone's day off. Whatever you do not is to your right. Built in 1872. It was named the Palace of the Nile after a palace that once stood where the Nile Hotel is to your left. There once stood a palace for one of the daughters of Muhammad Ali the Great, which was called the Palace of the Nile. Although the palace was destroyed many years ago, but the bridge still carries the same name. The white building with the green flag on top and the clock to your left, this is the Arab League of Nations. The idea of having an Arab League started by King Farouk in 1948, then later was adopted by President Nasser.
Oh, maybe that's the only way to get to this side. Maybe.
Shortcut highway.
Henna herbs and red wine, that was to close all the pores. Then the body got so dry, so they started lubricating it with perfumes and oils. Then they covered it with a layer of bitumen to make a shield between the body and the bacteria